Hey everybody, what's going on? It is Justin from Justin Paul Sports doing a special impromptu Black Friday edition of Cover 2 Cash. This week I got a special guest as my co-host with the most, Bobby from Bobby's Big Board, has not been feeling so well and is unavailable this week. So we are hoping that he gets better soon. But with that being said, we're going to discuss some fantasy football. We had some amazing Thanksgiving Day matchups. The slate was amazing. And my co-host today is the fantasy football strategist. Let me add him to the stage. What's going on, sir?
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Yeah, it's unfortunate Bobby's feeling a little bit under the weather, but I think we can present something pretty interesting today. And like you said, we are going to potentially discuss some of these games and some of the implications.
Yeah, it was a great Thursday slate. Mostly on this show, what we do is Bobby and I will go over some college football, and then we'll go over, the NFL. We'll do a preview of the games, and then we'll do his start sits. Because Bobby, like yourself, you guys, they've for my audience that don't know, they've collaborated on stuff before, and it's all fantasy football content. They don't really do the sports betting stuff like I do. But I play fantasy football. I'm in a league with both these gentlemen, so it is pretty good. It's good banter going along there. And once again, I do want to thank you guys for joining us on a impromptu, unscheduled Black Friday banger that we got going on. What was some of your fantasy takes? Let's go ahead and start with the first game yesterday. My Green Bay Packers putting belt to ass on the Detroit Lions, which I thoroughly loved. We swept Motown, went in there, handled business. I got to say, Micah Parsons has been absolutely the perfect addition for that football team. Watching the Packers for all these years, they've just been so lousy defensively, and you couldn't trust them to make plays. And yesterday, he was just all over the field giving Jared Goff nightmares. What's your take on the quarterbacks and what you got from fantasy yesterday and what you see going forward for the Packers and the Lions?
Yeah, and one thing I want to mention is that, Micah Parsons, a lot of times people just look at the stat sheet and they'll say, oh, he didn't have a sack. Well, this man is eating triple teams. You're talking
Yeah.
a chip from a tight end, potential back end to tackle, doubling. So, I mean, yeah, so he's been absolutely dynamic. And yeah, I think he finished with 2 sacks yesterday. But as far as the quarterbacks are concerned, man, Jordan Love, people will look at the completion percentage, the raw completion percentage, and they won't take into account that there were several drops. In my opinion, I'm not even a Packers fan. There were several potential defensive holding / PI calls that were not called, but his deep ball was on that one to Christian Watson was awesome. And he had some pinpoint accuracy, especially on that Dontavian Wicks touchdown early on.
Yeah. He's one of my favorite receivers on that team because that man has hands. Like, it's been unfortunate watching the Packers drop the football a lot last year, and then this year with the injuries to the entire receiving corps. It seems Jaden Reed's out. I mean, Golden missed yesterday. I mean, Wicks has been hobbling around. It seems like they only had Tucker Kraft and Romeo Dobbs, and then when Kraft got injured, they really had to go to the guy they drafted ahead of him, which was Luke Musgrave. And I,
Disconnected.
and I felt that with Luke Musgrave, I thought that you would kind of see the similar production, even though he's been injured, because he had a pretty good college profile for getting open and being more of a receiving tight end. But as far as and I'm an Alabama fan. For those of you that know or watch every week, it's really great to see Josh Jacobs go back there and barrel people like he did in college. I enjoyed that so much when they signed him as a free agent. And this was, I think, the first week he didn't get in the end zone all season. I mean, Josh Jacobs is pretty reliable to score you at least a touchdown and at least get you a few receiving yards, if you do a PPR league or if you do half PPR. But nonetheless, you'll still get yards with him nonetheless. And then if we're shifting towards the Detroit Lions a little bit, I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs there's an NFL thing that I like to call somebody's daddy, right? Like the Packers are the Cowboys' daddy. And it goes on and on and on. You could always find a phrase, well, Jahmyr Gibbs just does not play well against Green Bay. He whoops everybody else, but when he plays Packers, he gets pretty, I don't want to say pedestrian, but it just gets like, it's really tough, especially with the addition up front. I do think the loss of Devontae Wyatt is going to hurt Green Bay down the stretch for the playoff push for sure, because he eats the inside so well, it gives the pass rush much better. But I've got a couple shares of Jared Goff. The man is super efficient in this offense. There was some fall off with the coordinators leaving. You can see, I was watching the NFL pregame show this morning, the entire dynamic of, well, they're still calling Ben Johnson plays. They're just not executing them. Like when they tried that reverse pass, Goff just dropped it and stuff like that. But he still played pretty well. I mean, they were in the game till the end, and I think that there's a coaching epidemic in the NFL. Dan Campbell's going for it too many times. And it's not just him. We saw it last week with the Giants. They're up three. You know what I'm talking about? They had them inside the 10. It's fourth and goal. Just take the points and make the Lions score a touchdown. And instead, you don't. And Detroit goes down there, tie the game, go into overtime. Gibbs breaks the play of the day at that explosive run in overtime, and you lose the football game. There's just too much like Madden-like activity, I think, with coaches. But I think the Lions were hurting without St. Brown. They've been pretty banged up on the offensive line. So their offense was basically Gibbs and Jamison Williams. And one of the touchdowns Jamison shouldn't have scored is just Carrington Valentine missed that tackle and was able to break that screen right before half. It could have been 17-10, best case scenario, but it turned out 17-14 worked out for the Lions. What's your take on the Lions offense, and how do you feel about their fantasy prospects going forward as we're inching towards the playoffs?
Yeah, so like you mentioned with Jahmyr Gibbs and historically against Green Bay, he just has Green Bay just has the speed to get to the perimeter on defense that just does not allow him to get to the outside. And then Wyatt, unfortunately, he was a factor throughout, the game and the point in which he actually played through.
No.
But yeah, there just was no room for him. They did a fantastic job shutting down the run game just in general. I mean, Montgomery was a little bit better to me, but at the same time, they were just dominant. But as far as the Lions are concerned, man, Amon-Ra St. Brown, that is quite unfortunate. I do expect Jamison Williams. I don't think that he's exactly going to fill the role that Amon-Ra plays. I think we're going to get some Tesla in his specific role in the offense, but I do think we're going to get increased volume for Jamison Williams. I mean, we've seen in 4 of the past 5 games, he has produced at a solid level. I think we're going to get him a lot on crossers. And moving back real quick to Musgrave, the Packers were saying that they were going to potentially get him, I believe, running more routes, but that really did not translate to target volume.
Yeah, it seems like they're hell bent on running the football, and as long as they're doing it, you got to be a factor to simply stop it. Packers did get away with that timeout call. In the presser post game, they asked LaFleur about it, and he winked and smiled and said, "Of course they got it right," which is pretty funny. But nonetheless, after that game is when everybody starts stuffing their faces with the delicious Thanksgiving goodness that is an American holiday. God bless America with enjoying Thanksgiving along those sorts. And we had another pretty quality matchup here with Kansas City and Dallas. Now, I took Kansas City in the game. I thought that they were starting to piece things together, even though their record hasn't really said so much. And the Cowboys' defense is, you just don't know. But man, Dak Prescott looked like he was on another level yesterday, absolutely torching that team's defense. I mean, the Cowboys came to play. It was a great football game, and the Chiefs are sitting at 500. I know Bobby, he may be one of our 5 viewers right now, but that's his team, and they've. It felt like the foundations were starting to crack last season with Kansas City offensively. I mean, it doesn't. It's him. It's basically the offense runs through Rashee Rice. It doesn't. They don't have an elite running game, and Worthy's drop off has been just ridiculous. Kansas City seems pretty almost one dimensional. I mean, we saw a few electric plays from Mahomes, and we saw, defensively they had the pick six on Dak to start the game essentially. What's your take on Kansas City's offense and their performance, and how did you feel about Dallas and what's going on with George Pickens? My goodness, what a resurgence he had. I got a theory on Pittsburgh because they have a problem there with wide receivers. I mean, they've ran Pickens out of there. Where's DK Metcalf kind of been? I mean, they've ran a few others. Antonio Brown, that's not the best example, but nonetheless, it seems like elite receivers just don't fit in the Steelers locker room. But Dallas got to go. They've got the resurgence with Javonte Williams. Their trade from Parsons to the Packers has brought in a haul, and they were able to maneuver to get Kenny Clark and Quentin Williams up front, and I think that's helped Dallas's defense tremendously because they have super talented secondary. So, give me a breakdown on yesterday's fantasy implications for the Chiefs and the Cowboys.
Yeah, so they will continue to spam Rashee Rice, and it works every single time when he's not dropping wide open passes during crucial moments of the fourth quarter. But yeah, Worthy seems like kind of an odd man out, honestly. I know some people were thinking, due to the injury in which Rice sustained due to Mahomes decking him last season, that there was the potential for Xavier Worthy to really establish himself as the number one receiver this season. I did not see that happening just because the role in the offense. See, Rice is really taking over Travis Kelsey for a lot of his the area of the field in which they utilize. They use him a lot on the crossers. They use him on the slants, and he's not as he's not your conventional number one type of wide receiver, but he is so dynamic with the ball in his hands, and it really is amazing that they're able, the Chiefs in general, to have the passing volume that they do and score so much when they really don't have much of a complement in the run game. Uh, Isaiah Pacheco, we'll see what he looks like as he kind of gets back into the swing of things. But Kareem Hunt's been solid, but not spectacular. But
Yeah.
moving on to the Cowboys, man, George Pickens is that dude.
Yeah.
Jalen Watson, man, he is an underrated quarterback, but he had the inside leverage. What was it, about 5, 6 times against George Pickens? He had inside leverage, and Pickens was running a slant, and he would get the leverage every single time.
Yeah.
I don't know how he does it. George Pickens this might be a hot take. He
Let's go.
the best uh might be the best route runner in that regard in the NFL at creating short separation on slants.
It's interesting because I wasn't super high on George Pickens coming out of Georgia. And it's not being biased because I'm an Alabama fan. Like, I'm going to throw college stuff in there a lot because college football is my passion. I know that folks, we're doing this first time show together. We don't know a whole lot about like each other's intricacies. So I'm kind of explaining to him a little bit about me as we go. But George Pickens kind of missed his last year of college and had amazing hands, but just like was absent and had these issues with, his behavior a little bit. And it still shows up. Like last week, he got a penalty sliding down the flag or the goalpost. And I was screaming at a group chat with some family members. Now I had, the Monday Night Football game. They're playing the Cardinals, and they're down 10, and the Cowboys got the football. And George Pickens makes a catch, goes out of bounds, and decides to show off and show the football to the defensive back. Gets a 15-yard penalty. It hurts the football team. It makes me crazy when players do that because you're hurting the team. You're hurting the chance to win. But I got to agree with you on the fantasy production. He's wide receiver. He's got to be top 5 in yards. And the absence of CeeDee Lamb really put him on the map. Now they're a team that can make a run in the playoffs. I believe it because their defensive front's solid. Their secondary solid. Dak is playing at an elite level. And you've got to pick your poison on who you're going to cover. And if you don't, I like Javonte Williams running the football. He's not going to set the world on fire, but it's enough to make you have to decide what your defensive scheme is going to be. Javonte Williams is still good enough to get 15 yards. You could tell he's lost the explosion with his knees being blown up. That injury really takes time to recover. But nonetheless, that was a good football game. And like you said, George Pickens is doing something amazing. But speaking of amazing, we go into our last game yesterday. Cincinnati Bengals on the road against the Baltimore Ravens. This was one of my free plays yesterday. I had the Bengals plus 7.5 on the road. Joey B. Joe Burrow from LSU. This team is a completely different football team with him behind center. He didn't look great in the first half. And there's some rust there. He only played, game and a half this season? And he's wearing that shoe they were saying that was hurting his foot, trying to keep that turf toe in check. It's funny because turf toe sounds like such a lousy, like a sissy injury almost, but it's really where that toe joint meets your foot, and it's super painful because you got to push off your foot as a quarterback to make throws. But nonetheless, the Bengals looked really good defensively for the first time, causing 4 turnovers. Lamar Jackson, where's he been the last 3 weeks? No touchdown passes. His rushing game's it almost seems like he's apprehensive. Kind of helps to have Derrick Henry back there, but Zay Flowers has vanished. I'm a fan of Rashad Bateman personally, so I think that he should get him the football more. But yesterday, against one of the worst defenses in the NFL, they failed to show up at home, trying into tight race in the AFC North. What was your take on the Ravens and the Bengals yesterday?
Yeah, so fun fact, I'm a Ravens fan, so that was absolutely depressing. So as
Oh, man.
far as the Bengals are concerned, yeah, Joe Burrow, a couple, and they tried essentially a swing screen to Jamar Chase, and the ball placement was just terrible in the first half. And there were a couple balls that just did not allow him to get the usual yak that he typically would. The Ravens tried a lot of double teams on him, but whenever they were not double teaming him, whenever they'd present, for instance, a cover 1 or a cover 3, they would test the deep shot with Chase pretty much any chance that they got, with mixed results. But I mean, overall, Chase obviously from a volume perspective had a good game. Moving on to the and then we saw a little bit of Gesicki. Yoshivas had a nice touchdown as well, and Chase Brown looked fine as well. They really were, because they won the turnover margin 5-1, I believe. They're able to just run the ball at the end because they didn't want to risk it. Move on to the Ravens, though. Monken, there's there are times when he looks like an awesome offensive coordinator, and then there are times where he forgets that Derrick Henry exists.
Yeah.
You signed Derrick Henry to this extension. Now he's not the GM. I get it. And he has 5 carries in the first half. 5 carries. Uh, with Lamar's struggles, I really don't understand our our lack of leaning into the run game to help him. And now, sure, I likely fumbled at the 1. It could have been a little bit different if some of these things had turned out a little bit differently. The offensive pass interference on, say, Flowers on that, I believe it was a go ball.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just disconcerting. And Lamar's play, as much as I hate to say this as a Ravens fan, it has really fallen off a cliff recently. But he's not being helped either by them not leaning into Derrick Henry, in my opinion.
Well, they got a nice 1-2 punch with Keaton Mitchell. He had that touchdown. I mean, he's electric fast. That's the kind of combination you want in a backfield, like Montgomery, Gibbs. You want that with Derrick Henry and Keaton Mitchell. Anytime you can get a bruising back and a speed back, like I think the Bengals, they obviously need to get defensive pass rush in their drafts in the offseason. But if they get a pass rusher and electric back there, I think that they could be super dangerous. Quick question before we go to today's game. How do you feel about the Ravens' prospects of winning the AFC North, or how do you see the rest of that division playing out this year?
Uh, I think that it really could be anybody's race between probably the Ravens and the Bengals. I don't really think the Steelers. I'm sorry, I don't really think that their record might indicate that they're in contention here, but I just do not believe in that passing offense. It's so dreadful, and
Yeah.
you're going to need. I mean, the Bears. The Bears are one of those teams where they've beaten up on lackluster competition, but with Rudolph, he's been able to throw in the past. He's been able to produce some volume games, and they just, even with Aaron Rodgers, they haven't been putting up any points. And like you mentioned earlier, DK Metcalf, where is this man? He scored a
Yeah.
rushing touchdown, but I mean, it's abysmal.
It's Arthur Smith, folks. That's what I like to say. Wherever Jonnu Smith is and where Arthur Smith are, that's where you got to go when it comes to Steelers. But we're going to segue into our Black Friday game. We got Philadelphia Eagles and the Chicago Bears. Here's one. The city of brotherly love. I'll go first a little bit here. Jalen Hurts has been, obviously a Super Bowl MVP and a fantastic, fantasy football quarterback for just the king of the vultures. When you're inside the goal line, if you don't score, he's going to score for you. But it feels like the Eagles of this season are like the Chiefs of last season. They kept winning the football games, but there's glaring holes. There's glaring holes, which I saw Jalen Hurts throw at Alabama, and to me, he was never super precise. He's got the arm to get it downfield pretty decently, but like the long game isn't his game. His game is all short and inside. And to Philadelphia's credit, they're playing to his strengths. They got Saquon Barkley. They're able to move the football rushing, but this year Saquon's numbers have dipped. It's like the Eagles are definitely missing Lane Johnson. They're definitely missing Jason Kelsey. Landon Dickerson's hopping around there on the offensive line. And defensively, you can get around them, in my opinion, with screen passes because they are a super aggressive football team up front with all those former Bama and Georgia players. When you got those SEC dogs up front, I think you can get around them. They just have, the Packers should have beat them. You allow a team 7 points like the Eagles, you should be able to pull it off, or 10 points, whatever it was that game. As for the Bears, this is a franchise who I love to pick on. I mean, we're in 2025 and you still don't have a 30-yard touchdown passer, which is kind of crazy considering Jay Cutler was a part of that team, that franchise, in a modern era. That's like the best quarterback they've had. But I don't trust the Bears running game. Romo Dunze's fallen off the map. I think DJ Moore is going to be out of there. I do like Luther Burden a lot. I've spoken with Bobby about this. I was hoping the Packers would have taken Luther Burden instead of Matthew Golden, because Golden has, to me, can't separate. He's just a speed demon. But what's your preview on today's game? I like just for the record, the line is that Philadelphia -7. It is my free play of the day. I didn't put out a free play video because I impromptu decided to do this live stream, but my free play of today is the Philadelphia Eagles -7 on a Black Friday blockbuster on Amazon Prime. What's your fantasy preview going into this? Who do you like to sit? Who do you like to start? What do you like about the Bears and the Eagles?
Yeah, so as far as the Bears are concerned, I really don't particularly like anybody on that team to feel confident in starting. I think Caleb Williams has the chance to put up some volume stats. He's going to be pretty careful with turnovers. He's generally conservative. I think that's part of his deep accuracy issue, along with his footwork being inconsistent. He's definitely improved significantly under Ben Johnson from the beginning of the year up to this point, but the Eagles are a whole different beast on defense, and by far, significantly the most difficult defense in which he's faced so far. As far as Saquon Barkley, I did predict that he was going to be the worst pick in fantasy drafts in both dynasty and redraft settings. When you have 450 touches the prior season, historically, you fall off a cliff in terms of efficiency the next season. I don't know if Derrick Henry exactly. He was pretty close to this. He is one of the rare examples of somebody that could potentially do that year over year. But as far as the Eagles are concerned, I think that with Devontae Smith out, that we want to start AJ Brown. I think that I think the Bears are getting Jalen Johnson back, which sucks for him. But I do think that we want to start AJ Brown. I think you have to start Saquon Barkley. If you can afford to sit him, then your team is just goated. And Hurts, I think, is a solid start as well. And I think Goddard is a sneaky chance for a touchdown because while the volume hasn't been particularly great, I think this is a matchup that he can exploit and score because the Bears are on fourth-string linebackers right now.
So you feel like taking a fantasy football question from one of our viewers?
What's that?
Okay, so we got a question here from Alex. Alex says, "Hey guys, what's up? This is my team. Week 13, any changes? May, Henderson, Harvey, Jettas, JSN, McBride, Judkins." So those are his starters. On the bench, he's got Bucky, Woody, Wandale, Emeka, Loveland, Pierce, Algier, and a 10-man PPR. What's your take on his lineup? You got anything that you would sub in on there?
The only swap that I would make, and this is under the condition that Baker Mayfield ends up toughing it out and playing this game, is if Baker Mayfield plays, I would probably play Ekbuka over Jay Jettas. Besides that, and it's as unfortunate as it can be, but we just don't know what Brosmer's going to look like. I personally could not tell you. I have him as my dead last ranked quarterback just because I don't know. 9 has looked so bad. It's abysmal. And it hurts because he's one of the most talented receivers we've seen, Jay Jettas. The consistent separation, the fantastic hands, the ability to adjust his routes on a whim due to the coverage in which he's seeing, it's incredible. And he can't even do anything because they can't get him the ball.
I'll tell you this, I was not big on J.J. McCarthy at Michigan. And I got to disclose it. Yes, I'm a Bama fan. Yes, they won the Rose Bowl, but J.J. McCarthy is a handoff merchant. He just is. The Vikings absolutely fumbled the bag, which I thoroughly enjoy. Warms my heart. There are a few teams that I like to see fumble the bag, and that's one of them. Them, the 49ers, the Bears, teams I dislike. I do enjoy when they make foolish decisions. But I'll get to that in a second. Based on my opinion here is I would sit Travion Henderson because he's splitting the backfield with Ramondre. There is some kind of something going on there to where they're just making him care. And I think it's the contract. Ramondre got paid this past offseason, and they're not just going to – NFL teams are too proud to put players on the bench. And Bucky Irving's supposed to play this week, so I think that might be the only swap I do. I think I still got to go with Jettas. You said Emeka Ibuka, but it's funny because let me tell you a dynasty trade I'm in another league. So I did a complete teardown, right? I traded Chase for Ibuka and 3 firsts. 5 games in, Egbuka is like wide receiver 5, sold it to the same guy and ended up getting Jaden Daniel. No, I'm sorry. Uh, Malik Neighbors and somebody else. Now I'm not contending, right? Like this is I've only got one win on the season. It's been a brutal teardown. But getting Neighbors over Agbuka, like I thought that was a steal. And he was desperate. He's trying to get in the playoffs. I was totally fine. I don't think Agbuka is going to be what he has been, not because of his lack of talent, but I just, I don't think it's sustainable. With Chris Godwin coming back, and like you said, with Baker Mayfield's injury, I think that's another reason to play Bucky. Is if Baker's in pain, he's going to be able to give the ball to somebody who can make plays. There's zero doubt about what Bucky Irving can do. I think Sean Tucker's going to take over the RB2 spot there from Rashad White. But thank you for the question so much. I do appreciate that. Let's see how
Yeah, you'll never meet a bigger Neighbors fan than me. I would take him 1-for-1, even with sustaining the ACL injury and a rebuild. I think Neighbors has the second highest possible potential upside other than Jamar Chase. They are extremely similar players, and assuming we don't have any long-term complications from that ACL and meniscus tear, I still have him as a top 3 dynasty wide receiver. He is that good.
Well, let's move on to our Sunday slates. I'm just going to go ahead and go over these games in order first, and it's just due to ESPN's, schedule format. We're just going to go over the morning games first. We got the 49ers heading on the road to Cleveland. Folks, if you're in the Cleveland area, tickets are as low as $27. This is the man when it's him. Shedeur Sanders going to get his first home start. He may have ignited the Cleveland Browns last week. I mean, to be fair, it was the Raiders. I think that's another thing. They're so quick to jump on Shedeur hype because of, Deion's an electric athlete, and Shedeur did some things in the Big 12, but I have to see it to believe it from him. If you're paired with Travis Hunter in a Big 12, which is a conference not traditionally known for defensive plays, you didn't win a bowl game, you didn't win the Big 12, what's the hype really about? I'm curious to see, and I think the Browns can win games. I've said multiple times, this is a Super Bowl caliber defense. There's zero doubt about it. If they had even Deshaun Watson in there, I think they'd be in the playoff hunt. If you could just be a steady hand at quarterback, the Browns can win football games. I believe it with all. That's the best defense in AFC. They're fierce up front. I mean, Myles Garrett is having a career year. Mason Graham's on the team. They're young. The future is bright in Cleveland. I'm going to say it. I know everybody could say the Browns are cursed and this, that, and the other. They're only cursed from a fantasy aspect, in my opinion. Even though I like Quinshon Judkins, and as an Alabama fan, I do like Jerry Jeudy. But they're not getting the ball to him. And on the other side, with the 49ers, it's publicly known how I feel about Brock Purdy. I think that they, it kind of showed last week in the first half where he's just throwing dimes to the Panthers defense. He's, I think that the best fantasy aspects of the game, is Christian McCaffrey. You just lean on him. Everybody else is hurt. Your all-pro left tackles in there, and Kittle was just absent Monday night. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I can trust Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall and the 49ers to be effective as far as the fantasy aspect of it. What's your take on the Niners-Browns matchup? Who you like, who you dislike?
So I think that Judkins has a chance to improve his yards per carry. It's been abysmal, but at the same time, the run blocking hasn't been great, and there's been no semblance of a threat from the quarterback position to make defenses have to back off, stacking the box and making his life difficult. I think he's a good bet to get a touchdown this week. I think as far as Shedeur Sanders is concerned, people will be either way too high or way too low on him, in my opinion. I thought there was a play where he was on a naked bootleg to the right, and he hit a beautiful deep ball down the field. It was beautiful. Yeah. But then they'll look at the stats and say, oh, he had over 200 yards and a touchdown when he had a 60-yard screen pass for a touchdown. So,
right. Yes. One to forward. Was it throwing forward?
Yeah, I wish people would just be fair. He had some good plays. But
it was Dylan Sampson.
It was Dylan Sampson. So, I'm curious to see what he looks like. I wasn't the highest on him coming out, but quarterback is the most difficult position to evaluate in sports, in my opinion. Moving on to the 49ers, though, McCaffrey's an auto start. You don't even have to think about it. I think we see a little bit of Jawan Jennings this game. I'd like to see some Ricky Pearsall at some point. He's shown some flashes in the 4 or 5 games he's played in his 2-year career. Yeah. And Kittle is an auto start just because the tight end position, you just lack the high end producers such as Kittle.
It's so funny because I live in Phoenix. I'm in the Phoenix area in Arizona, and Ricky Pearsall and Brock Purdy are from over here, and I just am not super high on them as fantasy prospects. I got a couple comments here. You want to take a couple more questions while we're going, chugging right along?
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's go. Flowers and Loop got me 2.5 last night. As the Ravens fan of the show, I need some big games this weekend. Do I start Odunze, full PPR, or Judkins, higher ceiling of the two? Me personally, Rome Odunze's got to get back on the map, and the Bears' schedule is brutal down the stretch. They got Eagles today, 2 games against the Packers. I think they got another game with Detroit as well. But if it's me personally, of these two, I'm taking Judkins because I know I'm going to get touchdowns more so. What's your take?
Jack? I think that Odunze is going to see a lot of Quinyon Mitchell. I don't like that matchup for him. I don't like that matchup for him against hardly anybody. I think that I would prefer Judkins. I think he probably has the higher ceiling this specific week.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Thanks for Jack. I hope you like and subscribe. We are streaming on my channel as well as the Fantasy Football Strategist channel. Y'all need to like and subscribe to his channel. He does amazing content like Bobby and Bobby's Big Board. Make sure you subscribe to Bobby's stuff. They got to do the fantasy football stacks. It's what they're great at. I'm just the third wheel here this week. Even though this is Cover 2 Cash Special Edition for fantasy football. Got another question here. A little worried about Bucky. Need 3 half PPR. Bucky, Wandale, Michael Wilson, or Tet? Well, if we're going half PPR, out of those 4 options, I think I'm going Michael Wilson. We don't know if Marvin Harrison's coming back or Tet. Actually, Tet is wide receiver 1, and I love Bryce Young and the Panthers. Again, my Crimson Tide bias, but it depends. We'd have to look at the schedule to see. I mean, Carolina's playing. I think they're at home against the Rams, so might have to skip that one. Out of those 4,
Wilson, I think.
Yeah, I think might have Michael
if
Wilson.
Marvin Harrison plays, I want Wandale out of all of those options.
Okay.
If Marvin Harrison misses, I'd want Michael Wilson. Now, scheduling I'm not sure exactly as to which game starts before another, so it may be tricky in that regard, but I think in an ideal world, MHJ misses and you go with Michael Wilson.
Good stuff. Let's go on to our next game. One of my favorite conferences, the AFC South, the NFC South. I love both the Southern divisions because they kind of have these nasty rivalries and the teams are never elite, so it's always kind of a wacky state of NFL football. And we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars headed on the road to the mighty land of the Titans in Nashville and Tennessee. The Titans are absolutely abysmal when it comes to fantasy points in general. I've got some Cam Ward shares. I think there's some things to like about Cam Ward as a quarterback. He's got anticipation. But there's no help from that running game there. Those running backs are a torn ACL and 100 years old with Tony Pollard. Their offensive line is just brutally bad.
Horrible.
And defensively, there's nothing to get excited about either outside of Simmons. I think the Jaguars, there's a lot to like here in this matchup. I mean, you've got Trevor Lawrence. They're missing Travis Hunter, but they got – I don't know if BTJ is back or not.
Yes, he is.
Pardon, my dogs are going crazy. BTJ is there, and they still got – I like De'Ami Brown. I mean, I know he hasn't done anything fantasy-wise, and Parker Washington has, though. So I think the Jaguars got a good matchup here on the road for a team that it's a perfect time on the schedule to try and take charge of the AFC South or catch to the Colts. What's your take on the matchup between the Jags and the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, so I think this is a big Trevor Lawrence week. Trevor Lawrence historically plays very well against the Titans. No, I think they still have the same defensive coordinator as they did last season. Regardless, though, he historically plays well against the Titans, and it is, in general, based on how the Titans have performed this season, a positive matchup. I think we have a good game from him. Etienne and Bashal Tutin, I think, are both great candidates. I think Tutin is one of the better flex options this week because I think much like the game in which they played against the Chargers, this is the kind of game script that could potentially set up for a significant amount of rushing volume, and they're not going to want to load Etienne with 30 carries. So I think that Tutin and Etienne are good bets this week. I think that Brian Thomas, I don't think there's anybody in that secondary that can contend with his deep speed. So I'm hoping for potentially a deep ball touchdown to Brian Thomas. I think he'd be a good bet to score. And I think we get a significant healthy amount of Jacoby Myers as well. And Brenton Strange has been on the up and up. He went 5, I believe, for 93 last week. As far as the Titans are concerned, Cam Ward actually has shown some rushing upside. He's had over 25 rushing yards in each of the past 2 games. scored his first rushing touchdown last week. But yeah, man, with DK, AO Manor, it's not the best receiving core. But I do want to mention that Gunnar Helm out of Texas, UT, he has surprised me. He's looked a lot better than I thought he would this season, and I do think that he potentially is the tight end of the future for them.
Ooh, it's a hot take there a little bit. I'm not sure. I mean, we'll wait and see. You just got to see. I mean, the Texas boys know how to play football, though. It's funny because I'm going to take every opportunity to say this. It's college football related. At the beginning of the season, Bobby and I did a college football preview, and everybody was just slobbing all over Texas, saying they were national championship contenders. And I said they can lose up to 4 games, and they've got 3 losses. And today they play Texas A&M. And if they lose, they're out of the college football playoff prediction, or potentially for the college football playoff. But if they win, if there was a big wrench into Texas A&M going to the SEC championship game, because it'll likely be Alabama and Georgia. But the reason I say this about Texas and threw this into the mix is because when you mentioned Gunnar Helm, everybody that played at Texas last year, 10 starters went to the NFL. And you can't replace that kind of production. But Gunnar Helm, I thought, was kind of a wait and see, because he's behind Chigon Kwanko over there in Tennessee. But nonetheless, as far as fantasy relevance, I think the Titans are just a disaster to avoid at all costs. Even the last few weeks, Bobby on his preview puts up graphics for our starts and sits, and he just says no Titans are to be trusted to get you any fantasy points. Search the waiver wire. DK got you some points last week by that KOR touchdown if you count yards on special teams. But and I think that AO Minor is going to be a good football player for them. But the Titans have so many holes, they need to just sell the farm, what's left of it, and just do a total rebuild. They're going to have to find a head coach. It's just going to be it's a disaster in Nashville.
I actually did a film breakdown on AO Manor, and he's a lot better than I thought he was, but I don't think he's good enough to be, a wide receiver 1 or anything at the NFL level. I think he's just a solid type of role player.
Well, with that being said, let's stick to the AFC South. We got another divisional matchup. Seems like almost everything on here is divisional this week. Got Houston heading down to Indy. This could have Davis Mills. How about him? He's been playing pretty well for the Texans. He's got a level head on his shoulders. He was calm, last week. I like what Davis Mills can do here. This is my upset pick of the week, folks. I like the Texans to win outright because Daniel Jones has a fractured fibula. So you're going to put this man in the pocket against that Texans pass rush. I'm avoiding the Colts. As far as any wideouts, I'm not starting Pittman. I'm not even playing Tyler Warren if I got him. It's just going to be the Jonathan Taylor show because they showed practice clips of him, and he's hobbling on that leg. It could be a big problem and derail the Colts season if they got to go with Riley Leonard. You're going to have to put a rookie quarterback in there if anything happens against Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter and Henry To'oTo'o, Jalen Petrie and Derek Stingley. The Texans could seriously be AFC South contenders, even with Davis Mills playing football for them because he's got enough weapons, with Nico Collins. And just the running game's not so great. But I think it's a good matchup for the Texans this week to seriously put a stamp on it and see what – if I'm them, I'm just going after Daniel Jones the entire game and making him beat me. Or I'm sorry, I'm going after Jonathan Taylor the whole game, and I'm daring Daniel Jones to run the football. I'm daring him to try and throw anywhere because your quarterback is howling in practice, man. And it's not a foot thing. Your leg is potentially going to snap. What's your take on this matchup between the Texans heading to Indianapolis?
Yeah, so CJ Stroud practiced in full on Wednesday. I don't know. I don't think he's officially out of the concussion protocol, but Davis Mills has been one of the better backups this season in terms of play on the actual field. As far as Texans wide receivers, I feel pretty confident with Nico Collins, even against Sauce Gardner. I think he's just too fast. I think his ball skills are too good, and I think that the connection that he seems to have with his backup quarterback is potentially just as good or better than his connection with CJ Stroud. I think that Woody Marks is kind of an RB3 this week. I'm not the highest on him. I wouldn't feel particularly comfortable starting anybody else. Jaden Higgins has looked fine. As far as Colts are concerned, I think this is a very, very unfortunate matchup for Jonathan Taylor. I think, much like the Chiefs, that they're going to make a concerted effort to stop him, force Daniel Jones to beat them, like you mentioned. I don't think that's going to go well. I think that Stingley is going to do a pretty good job locking down Michael Pittman. I still don't know. If you're in a redraft, you probably have to be starting Michael Pittman unless you drafted wide receiver well or made some good waiver wire ads. I feel a little bit better about Josh Downs in this game because I think that Lassiter and Stingley are going to be busy on the perimeter with the outside receivers of the Colts, and then Tyler Warren. It's a brutal matchup unless you have a really good tight end or a potential streaming matchup tight end and a good matchup. I think you have to start him because he's been a really good floor player, but if there was ever a defense you do not want to face as any part of an offense, it is the Houston Texans.
Yeah, I think the Texans are peaking at the right time. They're peaking at the right time, and I think that if they can, like I said, we got to see what's going on with Daniel Jones. I think that's the Colts go as he goes. And with Jonathan Taylor running the football, man, what a year he's having, RB1. It proves to pay running backs. They paid him. Packers paid Josh Jacobs. I don't think it's a position you just plug and play on all the time, And coaches have a certain way of playing to your strengths, and it looks like Shane Steichen's playing to the strengths of his team. The Minnesota Vikings have to be feeling like idiots for letting Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones off their rosters, and they both go and they're immediately contending for the NFL playoffs on their new teams. It's crazy stuff. But that is a good, an interesting matchup here. I do like the Colts to win that game outright. But speaking of garbage, let's go on to the next matchup. We got the New Orleans Saints heading down to Miami. Oh, you love to see it. The Saints, man, another dumpster fire. Absolute chaos with what's going on with the cap situation there. Alvin Kamara's got to be working his way out the door. But I think there's some pieces there. They traded Rashid Shaheed, but they still have Chris Olave. Not too big on tight end with Juwan Johnson. I don't know how I feel about Tyler Shuck yet. Nobody's going to know until the end of the season. The Saints, in my opinion, should fire sale this team in the offseason what they can get and get out of this cap hell and just draft. Just draft like crazy. They haven't decided on a quarterback. There's a handful of them that are going to be available in the draft, with Mendoza or Ty Simpson or something, and you're going to be picking in the top 10, so there should be some options available. If you don't like what you have in Shuck, you just kind of see how the season plays out. I don't really particularly think that anybody on the Saints is super fantasy relevant. I mean, even Kamara's production's been put to a halt, and he's split in the backfield with Kendre Miller. I think he might be able to get a little, maybe 10 or plus points on Olave. He might get a touchdown in Miami. But on Miami's side of the football, my boy Tua, when he's on, he's on. He's the most polarizing quarterback I've ever seen. He does have a few issues with turnovers. It's shocking for me to see that a little bit as somebody who watched him play at Alabama, should have won the Heisman. Hitting guys like Judy and Ruggs and Waddle. And with Tyreek Hill, who I think was kind of a distraction there, and them firing their GM, I think Miami's kind of turned a new page. I think the GM was an issue there. Since they fired him, Mike McDaniel's been able to breathe a little bit. Got explosive playmakers in Achane, Jalen Waddle. They're able to, run the football here and there. It's just that offense is a little bit wonky for me to really trust anybody outside of Tua, Waddle, and Achane on the Dolphins. And defensively, it's just an absolute wait and see. I mean, they did beat the Bills. I think that they're still trying to work into the playoff picture here with the Miami Dolphins. I don't think there's anybody on the Saints that's going to give Tua any grief. I expect a lot of Achane in this game. What's your take on New Orleans heading on the road to Miami?
Yeah, so Kamara's going to be out with an MCL injury, and Devin Neal has been hobbled. He was limited in practice. I suspect he plays. I think that Neal's probably an RB3 for us in fantasy. I think we see even more Taysom Hill than usual, and this is a matchup that he can exploit from the tight end position as well as from the running back, fullback, whatever back position they decide to play him in at any given time, even quarterback. So I think that Taysom Hill is a sneaky upside play at tight end if you're desperate at. And then Olave, you probably have to start him unless, you have a lot of receiver depth, but not the best matchup for him. As far as the Dolphins are concerned, the Saints defense has actually been a little bit underrated, in my opinion. The offense cannot sustain drives. It's been abysmal. Spencer Rattler was a check down merchant. Tyler
He's
Shuck.
not playing, though. Spencer Rattler's not playing.
Yeah,
He's on the
fortunately
bench.
for them. Uh, but yeah, Tyler Shuck, he looked okay 2 games ago. You know, he had the 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. He remained turnover free, most importantly. That's the biggest thing for them. But yeah, you're going to see a lot of HN. I think you're going to see a good amount of Jalen Waddle. And with Tua, he just has this. He is one of the more difficult quarterbacks to project on a weekly basis because he could drop 200 yards and 4 touchdowns and remain turnover free, or he could just start fencing. So you never know.
Stop.
Possibilities are endless.
Take it easy. We're not going to do that. Tua is my guy, though, man. It's just heartbreaking to see what his NFL career has become because I think that when he's on, he's accurate. That's what the problem is. Or that's what everybody likes to say. He's got a noodle arm and this and that. But I think in the NFL, how many times do you really throw 40-yard routes? Like, in my opinion, if I'm evaluating a quarterback, I'd rather have the more accurate guy within 20, 25 yards than somebody like, I don't know, somebody who could just throw it at 70 yards. You know, like there's just
Anthony Richardson.
it's much harder to be accurate with a deep ball. And if you are, it's a super deadly weapon to have. But I don't think that that's how you win in the NFL. NFL is predicated on cover 2 defense right now, so it's a bunch of checkdowns and short throws in the running game. And Miami's got an explosive one with Achane. He's been going through the season pretty injury-free. I mean, it just feels like Miami's like I said, I feel like they're turning the page. I like the Dolphins I think they have a great game. I think Tua gets 3 touchdown passes in this game. I'm going to say it. 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. I think Waddle might have 100-plus yards. So, yeah, I just don't think anybody I like Kool-Aid McKinstry in the secondary over there, but nobody on the defensive front scares me. I mean, Cam Jordan's 100 years old. You know, God bless him, but I don't know. It just Miami feels like there's definitely fantasy potential matchup there. But we're going to go ahead to another pile of garbage. We got the Falcons heading on the road to New York Jets. You'll love to see it. Oh, wait, before we get to that, though, we got another question here. Hey, guys, should I start DJ Moore or Alec Pierce? I know Alec Pierce is against Houston, which is rough. What do you say?
Yeah, so I don't like Pierce's matchup. Like I said, the perimeter wide receivers, you're either going against Lassiter or you're going against Stingley. That is just you lose regardless in terms of it being an advantageous matchup for you. With DJ Moore, I think that
it's a really tough matchup for either one.
Gracious. I would personally go with DJ Moore. He's starting to develop a little bit more of a connection with Caleb. I think that there's the potential for him to get some volume stats, potentially as the Eagles, who I think will have a pretty decent lead in this game, might try to play more of a prevent coverage. So you might get some cheap, scammy production, in my opinion, from DJ Moore, which is all the same to us in fantasy. But with Alec Pierce, he's generally more of your strictly vertical X type of player, where he's going to be running a lot of go balls. He's kind of your, quote, sacrificial X type of player at times. And I think that's how he's going to be utilized in this game.
He also says he's got a scary Terry coming off injury, but might be limited. That's the Monday night matchup.
That's just as bad of a matchup, too.
I got to think that DJ Moore is the better option, too, because of the Daniel Jones situation. Like, he might snap his leg in the first quarter, and then you got a rookie, and they're really going to take the offense away. I got a couple shares of Alec Pierce, not because I think he's a premier player, but just like he's a plug-and-play guy. And he's hit or miss. He can. There's times when they do find him for touchdowns. You could get a cheap tutty there, but I'm going to go with you on that one and say that I think that DJ Moore. Alex, make sure you subscribe to both of our channels. Thanks for the question. But going forward, like I said, we got Atlanta heading on the road to New York in a game which nobody is going to watch. You can get tickets for $30, folks. Nice little 12 or 1 o'clock kickoff if you live in the New York City area. So we got Tyrod Taylor going against Kirk Cousins, the dream matchup that everybody loves to see. I think this might be a game, though, where you're going to see Bijan Robinson absolutely feast. I don't know what it is. Maybe you can help me with this. We've never had a discussion before until right now, really. What is the Falcons' problem with making sure Tyler Algier gets his touches? Because Tyler Algier is a pretty solid back, but it feels like they're splitting it. What are they splitting it for? It should be like a 70-30 split, almost like with what we see with other teams. Like, you don't see Saquon coming out of the game. You don't see that. You don't see Christian McCaffrey really to Brian Robinson too much. Like, that's kind of the great comparisons, McCaffrey to Robinson, to Bijan and Algier. I think Algier can be a good player. You know, he can play if Bijan's hurt, but if he's in there, why aren't they giving him the ball? Why doesn't Atlanta get the ball to Kyle Pitts? I've been a Kyle Pitts truther, and it's harder and harder and harder for me to do this. But he's still only 25 years old. You got to find him. He's 6'6". You know, he runs like a wideout. I don't know what it is. I like the Falcons there because I don't believe Drake London is playing. If I'm mistaken, maybe I'm not.
He's
But
not.
yeah, okay. So I think Pitts and Robinson have a chance against a defense that does not have Sauce Gardner, does not have Quinn Williams anymore. There's nobody really scary in the secondary. I think that those guys can have premier games. As far as the Jets go, I think Tyrod Taylor might be a spot start. Because the Falcons defense let Bryce Young absolutely put belt to ass on him. My goodness. I mean, you let the Panthers go wild on you. There's a chance that Tyrod Taylor can be, you know, throwing to John Mechie might be a spot start there even. I mean, he's had some pretty solid games with some opportunities. And Adonai Mitchell, though, has been just a guy that can run zigzags in Madden, but just can't catch the ball. I don't know what the future holds for Adonai Mitchell. What is your take on the Atlanta Falcons heading down the road to New York? Who do you like?
Yeah, so as far as the Falcons are concerned, in regards to the question you posed earlier about what the reasoning is for the usage of Bijan and Tyler Algier, Arthur Smith was terrorizing us with this exact thing in his rookie season. I would honestly prefer that they just give Bijan more volume and keep Algier at his current volume. Just run the ball, guys. I mean, Michael Penix has a fantastic arm in terms of raw velocity. He can throw the ball to any point on the field. The deep ball accuracy has just not been fantastic. And with Kirk Cousins, he just does not have that arm anymore. Now, I think we're gonna see a little bit more volume. Mooney only had 3 targets this past week. I think we get a little bit more volume his way in this matchup. But I think you start Bijan as a top 5 option. It is frustrating, though. I think Algier, because they continue to give him all the goal line work for whatever reason. I think he's a solid flex option if you're kind of hurting there. He's a good bet at a touchdown. As far as the Jets are concerned, I'm not really high on anyone in particular. I think Breece Hall is going to get a good amount of volume. I think he's one of the most underrated and underappreciated backs in the league. And don't confuse that with the best, but I think he's quite underrated. And especially in the receiving game. And I think that with Tyrod Taylor, we might see a little bit more involvement with Breece this week in the receiving game.
It's interesting.
Mechie's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you talk about Breece Hall. Like, I wonder if Kansas City's really kicking their own ass for not giving the Jets.
They should be.
It's one round, like, and it could have made a big difference because, like, Pacheco's fallen off a cliff and Kareem Hunt is your power back, kind of. But Jesus, Kansas City's inability to move the football has been absolutely dreadful. So I don't know.
Imagine that team with Breece Hall.
They've just been something else. Real quick, folks, before we go on to the next game, I'm going to plug my sponsor, which is Cut. If you go to @CutBet on X, you can get signed up, and they do peer-to-peer betting. If you want to make any kind of bets on props, player props, elections, the owner of Cut is always putting these unique questions up on the website for whatever you can want to bet on. How long will the war in Venezuela last? All kinds of fun stuff that you could do peer-to-peer betting. It is available in 47 U.S. states, I believe. It's based out of South Carolina, so this is an American company. It's not any offshore betting or anything along those lines where you got to wait months to get your money and have to do all these hoops and twirls. You can just sign up and use your debit card, your ATM card, throw $50 out there. Follow my channel here, Justin Paul Sports, and I put out daily picks. We love Cut. Because of Cut, I was able to get, former South Carolina legend Steven Garcia on the show. Super amazing crew. Go sign up. Use the code COVER2CASH to get a nice sign-up discount. You love sports. You love betting on sports. It's also why you play fantasy football, is because you have an understanding of what the player's capacity is, and you're able to implement that into who you're wagering on. Don't bet so much on your favorite teams. Bet on the smart stuff. Go to Cut, K-U-T-T, and get rolling from there. So shout out to Cut. Let's head on to our next matchup here. We got the Arizona Cardinals heading on the road to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Arizona, I like them to win this game outright. They've been on the cusp so many times this season. It's just little intricacies that have been going on here, even with Jacoby Brissett coming in for the Cardinals. It doesn't feel like the team's missing Kyler Murray that much. They've been absolutely getting the football to Trey McBride, who's one of their best weapons. Not Michael Wilson's had himself some good games without Marvin Harrison. Defensively, they've been okay. I mean, the Cardinals haven't exactly been a leaky football team. They've had a few bad games, but I think that they can get a few things going down there in Tampa. I mean, defensively, the Bucs have kind of been struggling. It's really been struggling. The one thing that the Cardinals are missing is elite running play, but I don't know if Trey Benson is going to play. I don't think he's been designated from IR, but he's close. So it'll still be, Bam Knight and a mixture of Michael Carter. It's just been a disaster for injuries as far as the backfield there. But fantasy prospects, I like Brissett. I think he's a must start. I mean, he shows he can complete the ball. He's not really turnover prone. This is a good matchup where he can exploit on the road. There's no weather issues in Tampa. As far as the Bucs go, I'm kind of concerned about Baker with that injury. Because when he threw that Hail Mary, like, you saw him squint, and when they squint, they can't hide that stuff, and even though it's a non-throwing arm, they're going to limit Bucky, I think, on some of the snaps. So he's going to have to spam Egbuka. I just don't trust anybody on Tampa Bay's offense with the question marks at quarterback. As far as the Cardinals defense, like I said, there's opportunities there, but what are the Buccaneers going to do? Their season seems to be swirling down the toilet a little bit just due to injuries. No Mike Evans, his 1,000-yard season streak ended due to injury. What do you like in these matchups as far as fantasy purposes? What's your take on Arizona heading to Tampa?
Yeah, so as far as the Cardinals are concerned, I definitely have Brissett as a top 12 plays, locked and loaded, especially if you're in a super flex setting. With Michael Wilson, I feel confident with him as a top 15 option, pretty much guaranteed if Marvin Harrison Jr. is to miss this game. He did practice, but I mean, if I was the team, I would probably play it safe. But if Marvin Harrison does play, I think I'd probably prefer him to Michael Wilson. But as far as Trey McBride, obviously auto start. I have him as my only tight end in tier 1 for these weekly rankings. He is by far the most consistent and dominant tight end right now. Yeah. And then I think if you have to play one of the backfield guys, you play Bam Knight, but I wouldn't feel confident in any of them. As far as the Buccaneers are concerned, you may need to start Buck Irving. I'm cautiously optimistic about his total volume this game. Sean Tucker, while inconsistent at times, has shown some very strong flashes.
Yes.
And then Egbuka, if Baker Mayfield plays, I think you probably play Egbuka. But if Baker Mayfield does miss this game, I wouldn't feel confident in anyone on that entire offense.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you just don't know with that injury. I mean, even if it's a non-throwing, Jordan Love had the same thing, but I don't think it was severe. And it shows that maybe why the Packers are running the football so much is just because they're trying to salvage these games without him having to throw. He had a beautiful dime to Dontavian Wicks yesterday, but you just got to be very careful when it comes to quarterbacks and their arms. Like, it's just kind of crazy stuff. But it should be a unique matchup. I'm kind of looking forward to watching Red Zone this week since the Packers were on yesterday. So I love when the Packers aren't on that 11 o'clock window or that opening Sunday window because I like to watch the Red Zone channel. I admit it. So that's pretty good analysis there. But let's move on to another intriguing game in the morning window. It's the last one we're going to go over in the morning window. It's the LA Rams heading out east to see Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. Folks, the Rams are a wagon. A wagon. Kyron Williams, Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, Matt Stafford. I mean, pick your poison, folks. You're just going to have a hard time. You're going to have a bad time, as they like to say. What do the folks like to say? Just stuff like that. But I don't know, man. I think offensively you can start anybody on the Rams. I mean, within reason. Like with those 4 guys that I just mentioned, I don't think you can miss. The Panthers' defense is pretty decent. There might be a little bit of favoritism with the team going all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast. I mean, Charlotte is right there in the Atlantic Ocean. And the Panthers are still fighting. They haven't given up on Bryce. They haven't given up on Dave Canales. I mean, they're coming all the way from a trip out west all the way back east. So they're at home. I think you start Rico Dowdle. I think he can get something going here. I mean, it seems to have slowed down a little bit. But I think that you can just work your way around Jared Verse, and I think that there's openings there in the secondary as well. I think Ted McMillan, you can play him. He might get you 75 yards. I'm not going to say he's going to go off, but I think they're going to kind of have to spam him Excuse me. But I think that I think there's players on both sides of these teams that you can play and get productive points, even with the Rams being what they are. What's your take on the Rams and the Panthers? I'm going to get some water. I will be right back.
Yeah, so with the Panthers, J.C. Horn is almost certainly going to be out with a concussion. So as much of a must start as Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams would have already been for your team, they are significantly higher upside bets now with J.C. Horn almost certainly missing this game due to being in concussion protocol. I think Kyron Williams is a good bet for a touchdown. You know, he's had a lot of those short yardage touchdowns siphoned by Devontae Adams. I mean, I believe he's had, I think it's eight or more, less than 5-yard touchdowns on the season. So that kind of hurt him. But at the same time, I think that this game is going to be wildly in the Rams' favor. Matthew Stafford's an automatic must start. So basically, like you said, all 4 guys on that side. But with the added context of Horn almost certainly missing this game makes everybody in the passing game even better. As far as the Panthers are concerned, Dave Canales, what are you doing? You're down by 1 score and you just give up on the run game when Rico's averaging over 6 yards per carry. First and goal from the 1. Yeah, let's let Bryce Young throw the football instead of just running the ball into the end zone. I just question sometimes, like, his scheming is good. I just sometimes question the play calls at times. But I think that everybody on the offense, if you can afford to on the Panthers side, is a sit if you can. But you may need to start Rico Dowdle, for instance, who's a very talented player. It's just that this matchup, it's as bad as it gets.
It's interesting. So I think there's a coaching epidemic in the NFL. There's so many instances where you can look back and say, why aren't you taking the points? And we've already mentioned too. Last night, when the Bengals got to the goal line, they ran 5 wide twice. They've got to stop playing Madden. I don't know what it is. I think Dan Campbell's broke the NFL. Like, I think he's responsible for all this because he had so much success doing crazy stuff with Ben Johnson. But points are hard to get, especially in the first half. There's way too much gambling for going for it on 4th down in the first half. And I think that players have too much power over the coach to just say, we need to go for it. And the coach just wants to trust his team, which he should. But sometimes you need the adult to step in the room. If there's any NFL GMs watching and you want to hire me, check your coach and check him hard on when to take the points, especially in the first half. I will gladly do this for $150,000 a year. This is a piece of cake. Just fly me out there. I don't need to know the game plan. I just need to know the situation. I'll be on the field watching the scoreboard. Take the points in the first half. I don't care if it's 21-0 and it's 4th and goal from the 2 or 4th and goal from the 10 or 4th and goal. Just get on the board. You've got to do something when you just in the first half. The game is not over. It's not. I don't care what it, unless it's out of control and it's 35-0. But that's not the instance in this league. Take the points. Get something. It's half a touchdown. A field goal is half a touchdown. So just take the 3. Go back out there. Trust your defense to make plays. You've already shown that you can get down the field. And I think that so many games have been lost because of, I don't know if it's pride or I just don't know if they just absolutely believe that they can pull this off. But this is the toughest league in football. And defenses get hype on 4th down. They get hype. Offenses have to execute the play. You know what I mean? And the only team that seems to kind of get this stuff right is the Eagles with the tush push. And that's just because of Jalen Hurts being able to squat 600 pounds and things along that sort. You've got a real strong player up there. But outside of that, when you're at the goal line, you have to control yourself. I don't know why they do this. And it's not just in the NFL anymore. It's all over the place. But it's just in the first half. Just take your points, man. Who was it in the 4th quarter? Which game was it? It was the Lions game. They're down 10. It's 4th and goal. There's 9 minutes left in the game. You take the 3 and you make it a 1-possession football game. It's not hard, folks.
You don't have a quarterback that can see. The other problem is if you have Josh Allen, I trust Josh Allen almost always, right? If you have Jalen Hurts and you can do the brotherly shove to push yourself over 2 yards, pretty much guaranteed every time. I get it.
Yeah.
But you're the Giants and you're not even playing with Jackson Dart. You can't afford, you don't have the quarterback to in my opinion, trust to convert. It's so abysmal. Do you remember the couple weeks ago which team was it? It was they kicked field goal after field. They would not kick field goals. They went into overtime. It was it the Berlin game?
Yes, it was Miami and
yes, Tampa Bay. No.
No, it was Miami. It was an AFC team, but yeah, both teams had a chance to win it with field goals, and they got cocky.
Commanders.
Washington, yeah.
Yeah, what? Take the field goal. You would have, if either one of them would have won before overtime.
There's something wrong. Like, I don't know if they're taking methamphetamines. I don't know what it is. Just figure it out. Control yourself. Take your points. Take your points. You've earned them. You know, especially in overtime. Like, I don't know, man. I was screaming at the Packers yesterday, going for it on fourth down at the end of the game. You're up. Make the Lions move the football. You're up 3. Or no, I'm sorry, punt the football. That's another thing. We don't like punting. Like, I know it's not exciting. The Packers are up 3. They're on the road in Detroit. They don't have any timeouts left, right? Punt the football. There was less than a minute. First of all, they threw it on third down, so the clock stopped. Like, the play calling sometimes is absolutely get these analytics out of your head. It's not baseball. You've got to be smart with what's going on. Your defense had been getting to Jared Goff the whole game. Like, put the pressure on the teams to win the game. Like, there's like a lack of trusting defenses. I don't know what it is. It drives me up the wall. But nonetheless, let's head to our afternoon slate. We've got the Minnesota Vikings heading on the road to Seattle in the Sam Darnold revenge game. What a horrible matchup for the Vikings. I am thoroughly enjoying the Vikings getting what they deserve. I will always enjoy the Vikings self-destructing, especially, you know, when they've got amazing players like Justin Jefferson. I do like Aaron Jones, you know, former Green Bay Packer, but, you know, the guy can't stay healthy. I think Jordan Mason's a pretty good running back, but that quarterback position is hindering this football team. I think there's some deep frustration going on with what's going on there. I don't know if Minnesota in the next offseason looks to reacquire Daniel Jones or if they look to go to the draft. I think they're done with McCarthy. I think that they see what they got, and you know, he's not even playing, or he may not even play. It might be Max Brosmer this week. I don't like anybody on the Minnesota side. I think I'd still start Jefferson, but without the quarterback, Jordan Addison's vanished. I think TJ Hawkinson is washed as far as fantasy aspects are concerned. But on the other side of the football, JSN, WR1. There's nobody in the league better than him right now in fantasy points. Dude's an absolute monster. The Vikings front four is pretty good. I like Dallas Turner, and I do like Ivan Pace as their linebacker, but their secondary with Metellus being banged up. I think JSN goes for 150 on this team. I think Sam Darnold is ready to put it to him. You know, he took that team to the playoffs, and the Vikings said, "Nah, you ain't it, pal." He's got. I mean, I bet this dude has had this game circled. You know, and the Seahawks are gelling. You know, their running game is really kind of hit or miss with Kenneth Walker and with Charbonnet. But I do think JSN is going to absolutely ball. I think Sam Darnold's a must start this week. What says you on Minnesota heading on the road to the West Coast?
Yeah, so as far as Minnesota's concerned, I wouldn't feel confident with anybody on that team. I don't even feel comfortable with Justin Jefferson starting him. Now, you may have to, and it has nothing to do with his talent, it has nothing to do with Addison's talent. I have no idea what to expect from Brosmer. Who knows, honestly? Could it be worse? Can it be worse than 87 passing yards? I don't think so. I mean, you know. And then with the Seahawks, I think that Darnold is an interesting play. I think it's a little bit risky because of the odd front in which the Vikings like to run. I think they're going to simulate a lot of pressure. I think that there's risk for him to have turnovers. But as far as getting the ball out to JSN, I don't think that's going to be any problem. I think JSN is going to be fine. And I think Sam Darnold is going to be putting up some total volume. I just do, once again, worry about potential turnovers with him due to his inability to really handle pressure very well. But I do think that Shaheed could be a sneaky play, too, for a touchdown in this one.
Yeah. The Packers kind of exploited the Vikings last week with great defensive play. I mean, they put McCarthy in hell, and it didn't seem like the pressure really got to Jordan Love. I mean, the offensive line for Green Bay isn't exactly elite this year, especially without Elton Jenkins. And Seattle's been known to have a turnstile offensive line lately, but I think that there's some agreements there. Sam Darnold could like get a strip sack fumble on him, something along those lines. The Vikings are going to get home on some plays, but I think the defense is going to bail out Sam Darnold, and there's going to be I think they'll get a lot of short fields.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to just completely say what you just said though, and just don't start Justin Jefferson. But I understand
you
your
have
logic.
to, probably.
Yeah, I get the logic behind it. You don't have a guy who can get you the football. It's just a brutal. I don't feel bad for the Vikings though. You won't ever get that out of me. But it's just, nonetheless, when you're talking about fantasy matchups, I do think that you can still get something. I mean, you might get a touchdown late from Jefferson, because the man has been frustrated and it's been showing, but we haven't seen the gritty much this season. I mean, he's only got 2 touchdowns on the season, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a dramatic jump. I mean, they could trade Justin Jefferson to the Packers, and we'll give them some picks for that for sure. We'll just absolutely
Give him 3 targets a game and rotate him in and out every other game.
Well, we'll send something. We'll send you something. Nonetheless, should be. I think that game's kind of mollywopped. Like that's just going to be. I think Seattle absolutely beats them down and kind of really puts a stamp on putting them in the grave for the season. I mean, the Vikings last year were winning because they had Sam Darnold. There's no doubt about it now. It's got to be. I think they want this win for him. And Seattle is a wagon in the NFC too. They're serious contenders. But let's move on to a game that seems to be the best of the afternoon matchups. There's 3 in the afternoon. We got Buffalo heading down the road to Pittsburgh. I don't know. We got Josh Allen again. Is Rodgers starting? I am not 100% sure if he is. But
probably, but we don't know.
Buffalo Bills. James Cook has had a season that I can't believe. I thought last year his season was super touchdown dependent. That's why I traded him for DeAndre Swift in the league. And I have brain damage because I made a move like that. But you got to live with the decisions that you make because we can't have foresight into the future. But the Bills, what's going on with Keon Coleman? Is his time up there? We don't know. They said that the second suspension was due to, or not suspension, but just him not suiting up was due to game plan. That might be just a way of keeping it in-house. I don't know. I mean, Keon Coleman had that amazing week 1, vanished off the face of the earth. But, the Bills are pretty banged up offensively. I mean, Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid haven't exactly been healthy or reliable. I mean, it's just nobody on the Bills, as far as offensive weapons, really, or anything to me that are worth superstar status besides Allen and Cook. I mean, they're throwing it trying. I mean, there's Shavers. There's who's the other wideout? Shakir maybe, but he's a smaller guy, so you're going to have to kind of scheme him open. As far as the other side, though, I do think Jaylen Warren you can start against this Buffalo defense. I mean, I've got some shares of Caleb Johnson. He must be in a serious doghouse, not getting out on the field. I'm not trusting whoever Pittsburgh puts out at quarterback. There's a lot of, we can't find DK Metcalf. But I am guilty of absolutely enjoying watching Darnell Washington play football. Even though he's a Georgia Bulldog, the man is a beast. When he runs, it's with fierce authority. Huge monster of a man, loves the block, loves the stiff arm. I think there might be another Darnell Washington touchdown. He might be worth starting. What's your take on Buffalo going against your beloved Pittsburgh Steelers? I'm sure you love the Steelers over there in your household.
Yeah, from I try not to be biased, when talking about that. But yeah, as far as in real life, I root for their downfall on a weekly basis. So as far as the Bills are concerned, obviously you're starting Josh Allen. Last week's performance versus Houston just is indicative of how dominant Houston's defense is. That's why D'Amico Ryans has a legendary unit. It's going to go down as one of the better defenses we've seen in recent memory, at least. Maybe not an all-time defense, but really good. Obviously, you're starting James Cook. I was in agreement with you as to last season. While he was relatively efficient at times, it was more so of a touchdown thing with him. But because he re-signed there, they've decided to. Although they've taken away his receiving work, it's really weird. He'll have 25 carries on the ground with no volume in the receiving game. It's interesting because he was always an above-average receiver, in my opinion, being James Cook. Shakir, I think, is a solid start as well. I don't think he sees a ton of Jalen Ramsey. And then with Keon Coleman, I just think, why just because someone's 6'3" and over 200 pounds does not mean they're a vertical X wide receiver. I say this all the time, and you think NFL scouts, you think GMs should know that more than me. He does not have the deep vertical speed in a line to beat coverage deep. He's not good against zone. He's not great against press. I really don't understand as to the qualifications that he had for them to think that this was the role for him. So bizarre to me, and honestly, I kind of understand why he checked out, allegedly. But as far as the Steelers are concerned, I think you have to start DK Metcalf if you think that Rodgers is playing. It's very risky, though. I think that if Rodgers plays, that there's a good chance that DK ends up with a touchdown this week. And you got to start Kenny Gainwell. This dude's getting 8 to 10 targets, the last couple weeks in the passing game. And then Jalen Warren, you probably should start as, an RB3 flex. But with the emergence of Kenny Gainwell in the receiving game and them leaning more towards being a little bit pass happy, and I think this game script would probably dictate that to happen again. I think that I prefer Kenny Gainwell between the two.
It's interesting you talk about drafting, right? And before I get into that, we have a comment here. Let's see what we got here from Run by Thrash.
Gadsden.
What do you like between Gadsden or Loveland?
Gadsden.
Gadsden? You think the Chargers are gonna be able to
Philadelphia linebackers, man? I don't want any part of this Chicago offense this specific week.
Well, this week, yeah, you mean you're going on the road to Philadelphia, so it does seem like Gadsden is the start there. Please like and subscribe to the channel for all the commenters. We do appreciate you coming on. This is on short notice here. But I do want to say about when we talk about coaching and scouts and stuff along those sorts, the interesting thing is I think a lot of these GMs, I'm going to say it, are foolish. We saw it in the Hard Knocks thing where they tell the kid is telling the GM to draft somebody because of Madden stats or something like that.
That's Giant Samara. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that the reason Keon Coleman went as high as he did is because of the helmet that he wore at Florida State and was on that team that was 13-0. And I think sometimes when you see an elite college profile, well, let me back that up. When you see a player have an electric season on a major school, a Power 4 school, whatever you want to call them, that you're going to have more bias towards them being against solid competition. I think this is what happened with the Panthers with Xavier Legette. I thought he had one of the worst college football profiles.
It's your breakout.
But he had one season where he just absolutely dominated. He's big and fast. But I thought that the Panthers trading into the first round to get him, they only moved up one spot. But I know why they did that, because they wanted to exercise the fifth-year option. Because you can only do that with first rounders had he been what he is. And quite frankly, they proved to shoot themselves in the foot because they went in the first round and got Ted McMillan the next season. So I think they know what they got with Legette. And there's a lot of GMs, I think, that just can't either don't know how to scout or don't know how to hire scouts. And they absolutely will not take humble pie. This goes back to what I'm talking about with the Patriots, with Ramondre Stevenson. You gave him all that money. And then you draft a running back in the second round. Who's an electric running back, who's fast as can be. But why aren't you playing him? Because you don't want to swallow the humility of signing these people to extensions. I'm telling you right now, I've got this theory, and this isn't pick on him, but this is my theory on Brock Purdy. Like, it's you were forced into a corner and you sign the guy, and then he gets hurt, and then Mac Jones goes out there and plays very efficient football, and Brock Purdy does what he does, but they're masking his quarterbacking by winning football games a little bit. Jimmy G got all that money. I mean, quarterbacks are a little bit of a different animal when it comes to this stuff. But like you said, why are they doing this stuff? Why are they drafting these players? And I think it's because you see elite helmets, teams that go to the playoffs and stuff like that. You just assume that their abilities, based on that team being able to win, is going to transition to your team having success in the NFL. And you may not essentially have been a key part of that team winning in college. And if you do, you have to do that stuff starting like almost at your sophomore season. Like, I don't like to draft running backs or receivers that don't declare early in the first round.
Especially receivers.
That's why I was not big on RJ Harvey. Like, he's 30 years old. People love him. Well,
Well,
There's
he
a
was a
reason.
transition from quarterback to running back. Uh, but I do agree that obviously you want younger prospects. Typically, dominating at a younger age is a significant hit to your profile in general. Yeah, as being a plus, right?
Speaking of significant hit, let's go to a significant hit to our eyes as we have to see the Raiders go on the road to Los Angeles to play the Chargers in an AFC West matchup. Tickets are as low as $81. I don't know anybody that would pay $15 to go see the Las Vegas Raiders. Excuse me, y'all. Get a little dry. So I'm going to say this about the Raiders. I don't think that Geno Smith is the worst quarterback, but that offensive line might be one of the worst I've seen in my life. In my life, especially the guards. Good night. They can't run the football. They're throwing to Tyler Lockett. This team is putting years upon years on Pete Carroll. Offensively, they got players. They got Ashton Jeanty. They got Brock Bowers. I thought Dante Thornton was going to do something here. If I'm the Raiders, I'm going all heavy draft with linemen in this upcoming draft. I think Geno's actually, because we've seen it from Geno Smith. You know, if you give him time, he led the NFC in passing 2 years ago. He's not like this brain dead quarterback that goes out there and just makes these foolish decisions. But when you're older and he's physically hurting, you can see that none of these Raiders players are worth starting, except Brock Bowers maybe until further notice. They just fired Chip Kelly after paying him $6 million.
I'm a signing.
It's just an absolute disaster piece there. But I think you could still start Brock Bowers. You just don't know. He might be the only start. But on the other side, you know, I'm not super high on Justin Herbert. I'm not. Like, dude is inconsistent. He gets a lot of grace for some reason. But if Hampton comes back, I'm playing him. I like Hampton as a start. I like Gadsden as a start. I think you can start Quentin Johnston. You know, even though his production is dipped, you know, he can get you 2 touchdowns a game. We've seen it with him. I even think you could start Landon McConkey. I mean, the Raiders stink. Like, they're just a bad football team. I think there's plenty of opportunity in this game. You're not playing on the road. You're playing at home. There's no weather factors here. What do you say about the Raiders and the Chargers?
Yeah, I believe we might have talked about this in our one fantasy football league chat. But I mean, Chip Kelly, how does he get these jobs? What has he done to be deserving of so much money? It's beyond me. I'll never understand at the NFL level.
I'll say why he got this job. I will cut you off. There's 2 parts to it. The first part is Ohio State having that national championship run last year. He was the offensive coordinator. And then the second part was Tom Brady really wanted him. And he's part of ownership. So that's how he got this job in particular. But I'm in agreement with you. Didn't mean to interrupt, but I just thought I'd put that out there.
It's beyond me. I hated the hire from before it happened. So, anyways, with the Raiders, I think you start Brock Bowers. He's one of the most talented tight ends in the NFL. Even in the abysmal offensive environment, really, like you said, due mostly to the offensive line and especially the interior of the offensive line being some of the worst in the NFL, definitively. I think you if you possibly can, you sit Genty, but if you drafted Genty, it's hard for me to imagine that you're able to really sit him. I don't feel comfortable with Trey Tucker. This is a really bad matchup for him, although I like him as a player. As far as the Chargers are concerned, Ladd McConkey is in general the most consistent wide receiver in terms of he doesn't really get phased out of games, even if he's not seeing the target share in which he saw towards the latter half of this past season. So I think he's a good, strong start in an advantageous matchup. If I had to choose between Quentin Johnston and Keenan Allen, I'm going with Quentin Johnston this week. But honestly, it's really difficult to know as to which receiver they're going to favor. And then as far as Gadsden, it is a little bit of a tough matchup, but at the same time, I think that with the tight end landscape, I think he's somebody that's connected to a pretty good quarterback, although overrated. And then once again, with the tight end landscape, I think that unless you just have one of these Bowers, McBride type players, he's a good start just because he has a lot of opportunity upside and potentially there should be some scoring opportunities. As far as Hampton, it's a plus matchup. I think that game script would dictate that if he does play, that this is a good time to put him in your lineups. I'm not sure as to what the total volume will be coming off of injury. You may see a little bit more of a split with Vidal than we would typically expect from Hampton. But yeah, if I own a Chargers player uh, that's projected to get any semblance of opportunity, I think it's a pretty strong start this week.
Yeah, the matchup is dreadful. I'm glad nobody really has to see it. It's just bad football. I mean, the Chargers are trying to get in the playoffs. They're 8.5-point favorites in this game. I think they can cover that because, I mean, they're just going to get home on that. Vegas front is just terrible. All right, we got 2 more games left. Let's go to our Sunday night matchup. I'm surprised it has not been flexed out. And it should have been Buffalo and Pittsburgh. I'm sorry. We should have flexed something else to the Sunday night game. I think you could have flexed like the Colts and the Texans to Sunday night. But instead, we get to see Denver go on the road to Washington. And I think Denver's going to win the AFC. They're my AFC pick right now. Amazing defense. Benito is a murderer. Pat Surtain is back. Their linebacking is great. They've got a better head coach here. I mean, Bo Nix can be not necessarily their elite fantasy quarterback, but I do like what he does with Troy Franklin. I don't care for Denver's running game. I always predict that Marvin Mims is going to go off, but it just doesn't seem like that's going to happen. And they got Cortland Sutton. I think that this matchup is pretty good for them to go on the road because there's nobody on the commies that just really does it for me. Jane Daniels is still not out. Terry McLaurin's still injured. I mean, you could probably get something with Deebo Samuel there. I mean, he always seems to find a way. But I don't trust Bill Merritt. I think that ship has sailed. Nobody on the Commanders really feels like a threat to do anything. I think they've given up on the season this year a little bit. They're giving up on Dan Quinn, but they just don't feel like they're fighting for anything. They got the injury bug this year. I think that the Commanders, the Cowboys of this year are the Commanders of last year. I think the Cowboys can go on the road in a playoff game and win in Seattle, for example, based on that offense is just absolutely fierce. What's your take here on this game? It's an interesting matchup, but I think that Denver's just got way too much going on. I don't feel it's a Sunday night game. I just feel like the Broncos are going to kind of handle business on here. The line is Denver -6. I think they can cover that. I don't like laying a bunch of points when I do my sports betting. How do you feel about the Broncos going on the road to Washington?
Yeah, so Bo Nix is the type of quarterback for fantasy purposes where if he has an advantageous matchup, he's a must start every single time. I think this is a matchup people will exploit. I think that Cortland Sutton is going to punk Lattimore pretty handily. I think that Troy Franklin is also, like you said, a fantastic option this week. I think he's going to cook over the middle of the field. I think RJ Harvey, I think this is a breakout opportunity for him. This is a really good matchup. He has the receiving chops already. He's shown at the NFL level to be a difference maker there. I think this is the game in which we really see what RJ Harvey can do because it's pretty brutal, and the game script also has the chance to allow for a significant amount of rushing volume. As far as the Commanders are concerned, I really don't understand that they're trying to push Jaden Daniels to come back. You're not beating the Eagles or the Cowboys, and I'm sorry, but the NFC North and the NFC West exist, so you're not getting a wild card spot either. Yeah. It baffles me. Yeah, so our franchise quarterback who's already dealt with not significant necessarily besides this past one, but injuries, Nick's here and there. Why are we bringing him back in a lost season to get hurt again? It's beyond me. I understand that you have to try to win every game. I get it, but I don't feel comfortable starting really anybody in this offense. I think if you're desperate at tight end, Zach Ertz, I guess could be okay, but I don't think this is a game for anybody on their side. Denver's defense is that good, even without Surtain.
Yeah. I think it could be. I'm not tooting my own horn here, but I think about this a lot, and I think about the landscape of the NFL, and I think that you can see 2 elite defenses with average offenses playing the Super Bowl. There's a potential here for a Green Bay Denver Super Bowl. I mean. And I'm not saying that because I'm a Packers fan, but just the front four. I mean, we're going to see what happens with Devontae Wyatt. That's got me concerned. But when you got great defensive players, and in this league that's so offensive heavily driven, if you're able to suppress offenses like you're going to play for championship caliber football. I liked the Bills and the Ravens to play in the AFC Championship when the season started in my season prediction, but man, with what's going on with both those teams, they seem to just kind of have question mark. It could be a Houston, Denver AFC Championship. We could really see that. I mean, seriously, and the Broncos, or I'm sorry, the Texans have never made the AFC Championship game, but they both got steady offenses, and they've got elite defenses. I mean, can you imagine Benito going after C.J. Stroud and then seeing Will Anderson go after Bo Nix? Alabama chasing a former Auburn player would absolutely light my fire. So, what you got?
Two things. They've confirmed an ankle fracture for Devontae Wyatt. And Baker Mayfield is also trending towards playing this week, according to Ian Rappaport on X.
So did they give a timeline for Wyatt for how long he'd be out, or just the injury itself?
It did not specify a timetable, unfortunately. But also, Trey Benson will not be activated this week, so you will see some Bam Knight and Carter, like you said.
I think, like I said, with the Cardinals, there's an up and up. Before we get to our final Monday night matchup, we'll get to the Monday night matchup, then we'll do a little recap here. Like I said, folks, we have 6 viewers. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. This has been a total impromptu fantasy football schedule. I know the Bears and the Eagles have kicked off. I know that game just started. But we'll go over the Monday night matchup here. I'm sorry, the game has not started. It'll start for another 2 hours. I'm way off there. Monday Night Football. Another banger, I guess you want to call it. New York Giants head on the road to the New England Patriots. Monday night, Patriots are 7-point favorites. Jameis Winston, you got to start him. Look, man, he's one of the most fun NFL players out there, but not just that. The dude can throw touchdowns. Absolutely torched the Lions defense. Caught a touchdown and mossed a linebacker who tried to tackle him. That guy will never recover from that. Wants to eat a W. And we've seen some steadiness with them. I mean, he finds Wan'Dale Robinson all over the place. But outside of that, that's one thing about Jameis is like he likes to key in on one receiver and then everybody else kind of sits back. He's able to do this. I don't know what it is. I mean, let's not forget he was a number 1 overall pick. He was picked right ahead of Marcus Mariota. And it's just the inconsistency to his game with the turnovers and touchdowns. Plus, he always says some wild pregame stuff. Like last week, he said, "We outside, but we inside." He's got some quips for the ages. I'm sure he'll have something fun to say about New England. If we get to New England, I mean, there's obviously no reason not to start Drake May. There's no reason not to start Stephon Diggs. There's no reason not to start half that roster. Mike Vrabel's got something going on with the running back situation, though. I think if Travion Henderson was playing, you would start him. But the Giants' front four defensively is elite with Thibodeau and Brian Banks and Bill Carter. They're not a joke football team. They just had some bad breaks. No pun intended on Cam Scatterboo. But I think Jackson Dart might play it. Or I'm not sure if he's cleared concussion protocol.
He's cleared and he's starting.
Yeah. Okay, so Jackson Dart is a must start. You got to start Dart. So let me tell you about a trade that I made in another league that I'm in, a pay league. I traded away Quinshon Judkins, Colston Loveland, and like a 3rd-round pick and got Jackson Dart. And immediately another league mate comes and says, I want Jackson Dart. I'll give you Jaden Daniels and Bucky Irving. So I had to take it. Like, you're overpaying for a rookie quarterback at that point. I mean, and I like Dart a lot. I think he's the next Josh Allen. I do. With his running ability, he makes good throws. He's just free loose. But I couldn't say no to that trade. Would you say no to that trade?
No, I would easily take the Bucky Irving and Jaden Daniels side of somebody.
And that's the same trade partner where I got Malik Neighbors. So, like I said, my team's on life support this year. But let's do a quick stop before we go over this. Hey, fellas, how's it going? We starting Kyle Monangai or Sean Tucker?
Sean Tucker, to me, with the news of Baker Mayfield looking as though he is going to play this week, I would prefer Sean Tucker over Monangai. That Eagles front is not to be messed with. And I just, as much as I generally like the Bears in advantageous matchups, especially when they're playing against teams that play a lot of man coverage, Caleb Cook's a lot more against man than drop back zone. this is not the matchup for Bears.
Freswell, thanks for the question. Like and subscribe, buddy. We need subscribers here. We're growing. Make sure you guys subscribe to the Fantasy Football Strategist, my guest today. But what's your take on the Giants headed to Boston to play the Patriots?
So, it'll be interesting to see. We've typically been seeing give or take 8 to 10 rushing attempts, 50 rushing yards, and a touchdown per game most of the time from Jackson Dart prior to the firing of Brian Daboll after he tried to also have Jackson Dart display some fencing himself. But so with the firing of Dable, I think we see a little bit less rushing output from Jackson Dart. But Jackson Dart, I still think is going to be dangerous. I think he's going to try to protect himself a little bit more. But I think that he has a decent connection with Wan'Dale Robinson. And while I really like Theo Johnson a lot more with Jackson Dart. They also have a pretty good connection coming. But really, as far as Giants players, I'm probably pretty confident with Wan'Dale Robinson. If you don't have a better option, I think Theo Johnson is a decent option with Dart, especially. But I think with Dart, we should expect a little bit lower of a floor and ceiling this is an important if we see less designed runs from him based on the amount of times, I believe it's 4 now, in which he has been possibly suspected to have had a concussion, even if only 2, I believe, were actually ended up being concussions. As far as Patriots are concerned, I feel pretty confident with Kayshon Boutte, even in limited volume. I like it. I like the coverage. I think he's going to face a lot of single high here. So I think Boutte is a decent bet. I like Stephon Diggs as well. I think they're going to try to get the ball out in the short passing game to avoid that ferocious pass rush. And I really like Travion Henderson here. They finally stopped running him with gap runs repeatedly over in the middle of the field or in the middle of the offensive line where they had a negative EPA. I mean, they had a negative EPA up until about midway through the season, running anywhere except literally behind Will Campbell. But also with the loss of Will Campbell to injury, I think they're especially going to try to get the ball out to Henderson in space outside, use the quick passing game. I don't think they're going to be trying to do a lot of long developing play action plays this week by any means against that pass rush.
Yeah, the Giants can get home. They can get home, and maybe Dart will light them up, this year. You just don't know. I think the Patriots are like last year's Commanders as well. I mean, that schedule's been amazingly in their favor as far as matchups are concerned. It hasn't really been tough. They played a bunch of teams with losing records or caught them at really bad times.
Yep.
And the Giants are interesting. Going in the offseason, they got plenty of building blocks to build on, and I think that they can get their things together a little bit here, have a good draft, and head into next year, they're going to have to find a new coach. I thought that they were a little premature in firing Daboll. I know it was a popular decision to do, but he is a quarterback guru. I think Daboll will find another job. I think he gets the Penn State job. I do. But, because he couldn't get it done with Daniel Jones, and then Russell Wilson, another example of why you don't sign like that. I think his career is over. I don't think anybody's going to sign him. He's way too much money to be as bad as he's been. I mean, sometimes you're just washed. Sometimes it just happens. Like the game passes you by. And quarterback's, unique position, but he's got to be known that if he goes somewhere, he's going to be the backup. And just quit being so goofy, with whatever he's doing. But he just is. Like, he's just an odd fellow. He's not fun odd like Jameis Winston. He's like weird odd, like that creepy uncle that comes over at Thanksgiving and starts saying inappropriate things, like that's just kind of how it goes. But that is our NFL preview for this week. Is there anything that you would like to promote?
I'd like to promote your channel and my own channel. I'm the Fantasy Football Strategist. This is Justin Paul, Justin Paul Sports. I think you might be able to potentially expect some sort of a collaboration, potentially during the actual NFL draft at some point. If things go to plan.
I think we're going to try and get you on day 2 for the Friday night special is what we'll probably end up doing. And that is kind of where Bobby and the Fantasy Football Strategist take off and do the excelling. Like I said, I do mostly sports betting, but I know enough about fantasy football and matchups to do pretty well there. I mean, in our league, we've had a couple guys talking smack to me, and I've slapped them both around the past 2 weeks, and they know who they are. If they tune in, they know who they are. But before we head out of here, let's do a little prediction here. If you were to predict today, right now, who do you think will make the AFC and NFC championship games, and who do you think will play in the Super Bowl and win in the Super Bowl?
Oh goodness.
While you're thinking, I'll go first.
All right, good.
I think it's like I said with the Broncos and the Texans. I'm going to just take my shot here. I think both these teams got elite defenses. We've seen Houston be able to weather the storm with a backup quarterback. When CJ Stroud comes back in there, the offensive line's been kind of here or there, but they've proven that they can win these games that they're normally not supposed to win. And Denver's defense is just a massacre. I think that that's the kind of game that'll be a 13-10 or 17-13 or 21-17, real low scoring under bet there. And I'll take the Denver Broncos to win the AFC. I think it's just how it's going to be. The NFC's a little more wide open. And I think we could see the Packers and the Eagles in the NFC Championship here. Again, these are teams with elite defenses, but we're going to see what the Eagles are made of down the stretch. I think the Seahawks might be able to get in there instead of one of those two teams, but I'm going to pick the Green Bay Packers to go. They've got the running game. Everybody's starting to get healthy. They'll miss Kraft, but defensively, they're able to get to the quarterback, and it's hard to do in this league. I don't see the Lions' defense is not, doesn't really concern me. They couldn't get anything done yesterday. I don't know who else in the NFC has an elite defense. I think the Bears are going to fall apart here with this tough part of the schedule. I think the Cowboys can make a run and maybe make the NFC Championship on the other side of the football. That might be one offensive team that can, that has a decent enough defense to get things done. So I'll take the Packers and the Broncos in the Super Bowl in the rematch from 1998. Boy, this time I'm going to take my Packers. I'm going to be a total homer about it, but I've got reason to be. I'm not being facetious or nothing like that. Either team that plays in that Super Bowl can obviously win it with the defense alone, but I like the Packers running game a little more than I like the Denver Broncos running game. How about you?
Yeah, so from an AFC perspective, in terms of who I think would make the AFC Championship, I concur. I think that the Texans and the Broncos are probably my two best bets for there. I think between the two teams, I would take the Texans. I think their defense is nasty as the Broncos' defense is. I think it's just a little bit nastier, and I think that it really would be a toss-up. Honestly,
Yeah.
it just would depend on which team I think wins the turnover battle in that game, and if they're willing to potentially settle for some field goals instead of going for it on a fourth.
Call me.
But,
Call me, Denver.
but as far as the NFC is concerned, I would really, if I had to say, I think that the Rams are a team I would really consider. Stafford is playing out of his mind, and that defense is allowing, I believe, less than 13 points per game in their win streak. That is
Yeah.
ludicrous. And then if I had to say another team, gosh, I'd honestly at this point, I'd probably say the Seahawks.
Yeah. An
Uh,
NFC West matchup for the NFC Championship. You love to see it.
if I
I
had
will
to
say
say
this. Oh, go ahead.
between those teams, I think I would take the Rams. And then in a Rams versus Texans bowl, I think I would take the Rams because I think their offense is just significantly better than the Texans. But I think
Yeah.
both defenses are comparable.
I will say this about just put in my head here. Just let's just have a little fun with it. Before you make that, the Rams I think are going to end up with the 1 seed. All right, I do, and I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to make the playoffs
It's possible.
as a 7 seed, and I think the Cowboys upset whoever they play in the first round. Unless it's Green Bay because I think that Green Bay's got their number, but anybody else, and they would play the Rams in the divisional. Now tell me that might be the team that could derail the Rams. I mean, it's just I'm with you on the defense, but their offense has been able. I'm not a Cowboys lover. I don't care 2 cents on the dollar about the Dallas Cowboys, but that's just a team I think can make a run, and I think that what the Rams have going for them is that veteran leadership of good players with Devontae and Stafford. The only thing that, I think that there's ways. There's That's another team that the Packers own is the Rams. Like LaFleur's got McVay's number, has had it in the playoffs too. You know, but I think that there's something. There's always something about super dominant teams that they always like fumble it there. I've seen Packers as 1 seed. I've seen the Cowboys as one or the Patriots, these teams that just get that one seed. The Lions last year, I called it in a Madden Discord. They're all Lions fans, and I said when the Commanders go, I said this in November. I said when the Commanders roll into Ford Field and roll this team, you're going to know that you got holes defensively that you can't cover up here. The Rams don't necessarily have that problem, but I just feel like there's something about it when the expectations get that high. It's really hard for me to just pick the most obvious elite team. The one seeds are really hard for me to pick, but I can see the Rams absolutely making the Super Bowl. So, and then you like the Rams to beat the Texans, huh? Man, can you imagine the city of Houston, the Texans make their first Super Bowl before the Detroit Lions or the Cleveland Browns?
Uh, that'd be incredible. It's just so tough because that Texans offense can be great at times, and then other times it can be extremely dysfunctional. And this is under the assumption that, or presumption rather, that this would be under CJ Stroud.
Right.
I think it's been more consistent with Davis Mills, to be fair.
Nick Cesario absolutely should be GM of the year. The man he was there when Deshaun Watson was acting foolish, got the trade done from Cleveland, got 3 first rounders, right? Goes out and trades CJ Stroud and trades with the Cardinals to get Will Anderson. So you get your quarterback and your defensive end, your pass rusher and your quarterback are your premier positions on each side of the football. You're making the playoffs. Absolutely turn that franchise around. It's incredible. Last thing I'll say, though, about GMs, how do you think the Falcons feel right now? They traded their first to the Rams. And they're not going to have a top 10 pick now.
Is it
I mean,
still
they've given them
Fontenot?
huh?
Is it still Fontenot
For the Rams?
for the
Falcons?
Falcons?
I think
Terry
so.
Terry Fontenot. Okay, because that guy, I'm sorry. What are we doing? I don't understand the direction of this team. You paid Kirk Cousins $180 million. Then you reach on Michael Penix.
Yeah.
I don't understand this. And then shoot, I can't remember head coach Raheem Morris. It's a baffling signing to me.
Well, we're
It
going to
didn't work
see.
out the last time you had him. It's baffling to me.
It's just the Bucks division to lose. It really is. There's no other team. The Saints are in disarray. And the Panthers are on the up, though. Like, I predicted them to be the 7 seed when the season started. And they're hanging around. They're just, I mean, they play
Can't
like
abandon the
garbage.
run.
They play like garbage, but then they beat the Packers in Lambeau. And then they play great against 49ers. Can't close it out. So pick one. But nonetheless, thank you so much for joining me on super short notice. I mean, this was like 5 minutes. We slapped it together. It's good stuff. Maybe we'll do something in the future. Bobby, if you're watching, I know that he was not feeling well. I know he went to the Egg Bowl today. So he's had himself a day, but he has been feeling lousy the past 2 weeks. Hasn't been talking much with his voice. So we will be back for another episode of Cupboard to Cash next Friday. Make sure you like and subscribe. And with that being said, I hope you guys enjoy the NFL this weekend. Good luck in your fantasy matchups. If you're in the playoffs, if you're in a dynasty league, take advantage. If you're out, let those contenders buy from you and get some nice draft capital. Get ready for next season. Gear up and just enjoy some football this year. And I hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving. And we will see you soon. Thank you so much. Like and subscribe.